Hello and welcome to another episode of PsycKicks. My name is Liv and this is the podcast where we talk about all things metaphysical, spiritual, paranormal, and in between. Today, I have a very special beginning of the year listener's story, volume 32 for you all today. I'm very excited about it. But before we get into the very cute little stories that I have prepared, I would just like to say happy 5 years of PsycKicks as a business. I'm so excited about that. I know it seems really silly, but I got like the little YouTube notification the other day that was like, you've been on here for 5 years. And I was like, wow, it really has been that long. So, if you guys are new to the podcast, hi, my name's Liv. I'm a psychic medium. And I'm here to tell you about all things metaphysical, spiritual, paranormal, and in between. Today, we're going to begin with a little housekeeping and a life update. If that's not something that you want to listen to, because this is like the first podcast you're ever listening to for PsycKicks, that's fine. You can go on down into the show notes below or the description if you're listening on the PsycKicks Extras YouTube channel and not like on Spotify or Apple Podcast. You can go to the timestamp and skip past this little section and just get right into the meat and potatoes of the podcast, which is going to be listener stories of it's actually not spooky. Usually I try to do like some spooky listener stories, but because this time of year can be hard for some people, and I mean, I don't even want to say for some people, this time of year, like the holiday season, the new year, etc., can just be hard. I tried to find some more like heartwarming paranormal stories, if you will, more family friendly. So that's what we're going to be doing today. But before then, I'm going to talk about new things for the business, a little bit of new stuff about me, and then we'll get into that. So without further ado, this is the housekeeping. Guys, if you haven't joined Patreon yet, I really am I'm bad at the whole business aspect of selling myself, I just make videos and podcasts and do readings, but I'm really bad at telling you about all of the other stuff outside of like readings and things. So Patreon, if you don't know, PsycKicks has a Patreon. There are 6 tiers. The first tier is the least expensive tier, and it's called Level Psychic. It's $3 a month. The cool thing about becoming a PsycKicks patron is that it's not just giving money to help support my existence. We also have things for you. The coolest thing with becoming a psychic for $3 a month, you have access to the PsycKicks Discord server. That means that you have almost 100, if not more, hopefully it'll be more soon, other people from all around the world to talk about paranormal, psychic abilities, spiritual things, whatever it is that you're into. I have servers for dad jokes, spirit guides, like literally everything metaphysical, spiritual, paranormal, and in between. So if you're someone who's looking to talk to other people about your psychic abilities or certain, paranormal experiences or spiritual things that you've gone through, and you're looking for other people's insight or perspective, as well as my own, because I'm also on there, that is a really good just starting tier, in addition to having access to my bi-weekly life updates. I know I talk about myself in the podcast, but I try to do like more spiritual, more personal things on the Patreon account as well. It's not necessarily going to be the same as what you hear on YouTube or in the podcast. So if you're interested, that is the most basic tier, and it goes up from there. So the next tier is the Harmonic Forest. So there you'll get content idea priority. So if I go onto Patreon and I say, hey, lovely psychics, you want to let me know what it is that you want me to talk about, topics you want me to cover, maybe I'll give you a couple that I'm interested in, and you guys get to pick from them. You will have content idea priority. You'll also have listener story priority, because today is a listener story. So if you want to send in your own listener stories, if you become a tier of Harmonic Forest, which is $8 a month as a pledge, then you will also have priority of having your stories shared here and in the videos. And you also have a long list of exclusive listener stories to read on the Patreon itself that I just haven't talked about on videos or podcasts. So if that's something you're interested in, as I go through all of the tiers, just to refresh everybody's memory, because a lot of them have changed, you get all of the like benefits from the previous tier in the next one. So if you become, say, a $50 patron member, which is the highest and most expensive tier that I offer, which is from the Infinite Domain, you have everything included in the tiers before it. So from Psychic up to the top, they just add on to each other. Now, if you really want to get a little more serious, you're looking for a reading, perhaps, at a more discounted price, The $15 a month tier, which is Akashic Castle, is probably something that you'll be interested in. So with the $15 pledge a month Akashic Castle, you get early access to content. So that means when I post videos, I try to get them done at least a week before they come out, if not at least a couple days. So you get to watch those videos on YouTube before anybody else does. You also have, again, this is why I mentioned it, monthly psychic medium live streams. So if you've ever done like a group psychic medium reading, or you've never had a psychic medium reading ever before, this might be a really good tier for you to join, because the first Saturday of every month at 8 p.m. Eastern time, and if that time needs to change, I'm open to changings. Because we have a lot of international people as well. So I try to find like the most copacetic day and time for everyone to be involved. That is where we do mediumship readings with me. That's just me. You're all in a Zoom meeting, and you get to ask me questions. So if you want like a pet reading, a plant reading, a house reading, a medium reading, that is $15 for a reading with me. And it is face-to-face through Zoom. It's just that other PsycKicks from the Patreon are also present. So it's not necessarily private, but it is personal, and it is in a group, and it's any reading that you'd really like. You also have expanded Discord access, because when you join as a PsycKick, you have general basic Discord access, which is like talking to people in the general server and a couple other little like chat rooms as well that are specific. But when you reach the Akashic Castle tier for $15 a month, you have much more access to different areas of the Discord server to talk about different things as well. Now, you also get a really cool sticker that's mailed to you. I believe it's after 3 months of being a patron, but the sticker nonetheless is kind of fun. So if you're into stickers and discounted monthly readings with me, Akashic Castle is for you. The last thing I want to say too about Akashic Castle, like this one, it makes me happy. Now, exclusive services used to be a part of Cloudplane, which is the next tier for $25 a month. But I know my readings are how do I want to say this? They are averagely priced. I actually had a reading with someone the other day. Joy, this is for you if you're listening to the podcast. Joy blew my mind and told me that I should charge more for my readings. And I was like, no. I already charge a lot for my readings. She goes, no, you could charge a lot more. So I was like, that's kind of nice. But anyways, the whole point of, being a patron is to have more access to cool benefits, things around, content creator life, I guess, things from me, like with the bi-weekly updates, behind the scenes things, the mediumship, live streams, but now exclusive services as well. So exclusive services used to only be a part of the Cloudplane and Infinite Domain, but I've moved them down to the Akashic Castle, because I think that for $15 a month, if you're getting a monthly psychic medium live stream with me, which is instead of $150 or $130 per little reading, it's only $15. You should also have access to the rest of the exclusive services. So I've finally been able to open the exclusive services back up, and those include wing and aura drawings, where I will draw the energetic perception that I perceive of your wings and aura. I mean, wings are kind of like the same thing as an aura. It's just a different abstract interpretation of your energy, if you will. And that comes with an email explanation and copy, like PDF copy of your drawing. But I'm also opening up private past life readings again via Zoom. So those exclusive services will all be a part of the $15 a month tier for Akashic Castle. So if that is something you're interested in, please go on down into the description below or in the show notes and look up the link for PsycKicks Patreon, because, it's exciting. Now, the last two tiers for Patreon are the Cloudplane, which is $25 a month, and Infinite Domain, which is $50 a month. Now, the Cloudplane, again, all of the tiers stack on top of each other. So with the Cloudplane, you not only get access to the monthly psychic medium live stream readings, but you also get 10% off any private reading that you book with me or service. You also have exclusive video content when I have the time to post it and make it. So that's in addition to bi-weekly love updates, as well as the Mediumship Circle book club. So Mediumship Circle used to be me telling you about my psychic abilities and how to help you grow with yours. But now I feel like last year I really focused on at the beginning, middle of the year, that I don't know everything. And I really don't. I am a psychic medium. I do understand my psychic abilities for the most part, as well as I can, but I'm looking to broaden my horizons so that therefore I can also help teach people in new and exciting and growing perspective ways, if you will. So that is why instead of just Mediumship Circle, which is me talking at you, I've created Mediumship Circle Book Club. So I'm not going to say every month because we're not doing like a book a month. We're just doing a book for however many, weeks or months we can split it into. But this will hopefully be able to help not only you to have a better understanding, perspective, and grasp on your psychic abilities and what they mean to you and how you want to use them, but also giving me perspective on how to help you guys as well. So I'm excited to have this more like open, collaborative relationship with you all in order to grow and further our psychic development. Now, the last one, the Infinite Domain, comes with 20% off private readings and services. And then I know I didn't say this, but Cloudplane comes with the sticker and the t-shirt, but Infinite Domain, after 3 months of patronage, you get a t-shirt, sticker, and a mug, all mailed to you. And I recommend the mug. I like that one the best. But anyways, if you're still listening, those are all of the new things for the updated Patreon tiers. And I'm very excited to hopefully welcome a lot of new PsycKicks this year, get to know more people, because I know everyone that's currently in the Discord server and on Patreon are all lovely individuals, and I know they're excited to talk to you as well. So let's move on to my own personal little life update. If you've been a part of the live streams I've been trying to do at least once a month for the past couple months, you may know this, but if you haven't, then you probably don't know. But I'm super excited to announce that my husband and I are just over the moon, overjoyed with being able to, God willing, welcome our second baby into the family this June. It has been a wild ride. I know before my son was born back in 2023, I shared things about like pregnancy and loss and miscarriage and birth stories and things like that. And this isn't really the best place to talk about it, but as a medium, I have talked to so many women and families that have experienced loss, miscarriage, infertility, things like that. And the empathy and perspective that I have gained over the past 2 years of becoming a mom and then trying to further expand our family it's been a lot, guys. It's been a lot. And at the end of it, I'm very excited to announce that my husband and I are expecting our second baby, but it has not been easy. And for all of those people that I've talked to before out there or who are experiencing things like that, I understand as much as I possibly can. I know all of our stories are different and to lesser and greater values, but it is, living life, the longer you live, the more perspective you give. And the last 2 years has really given me a lot of perspectives on many things, and of the many things, fertility or infertility, I should say, miscarriage and loss has been a lot. So very excited for this June. I'll still be able to have content. I plan on, when I have maternity leave to still have content just like before. So don't be worried about that. But I don't know. I still like, the spring equinox being the marker for a new year, not necessarily January, but it, 'tis the season. I hope that this year I can, through like Mediumship Circle Book Club and continuing to make videos and research different topics and podcast ideas to help broaden my horizons and be exposed to new perspectives. I really am looking forward to having more collaborations and formal paranormal investigation videos. Actually, the first video of this year, which will be coming out in a few weeks, is a actual like hunting, paranormal ghost hunting collab at a formal location. Because I know the last 2 videos I've put out have been informal locations, the middle of the woods in a cemetery. But we have a good one coming out with a really cool collaboration for you guys in the next few weeks. So that's exciting. I'm just going to start off on the right foot with that. And all the collaborations I did last year, I just hope it sets the tone for more collaborations this year, because I had so much fun working with the lovely ladies from Untamed Blossoms, Mara Einstein, and the lovely ladies from Live, Laugh, Lore. It was so much fun. So let's get into, after all of that housekeeping life update stuff, the meat and potatoes of the podcast. So without further ado, we have Listener Stories Volume 32. So like I said, the holiday season and the new year can be a hard time of year. And I personally like the spring equinox to mark the new year. But with that being said, I wanted to share some more fun-loving, lighthearted, and memorable listener stories with you all as sort of an ode to loved ones, to start the year on a happy note. So if this episode stirs up, memories or stories that you'd like to share, please use the link in the description below or in the show notes to send in your own spiritual or metaphysical stories about your loved ones, because I would love to read them and, for you guys to have a chance to be featured in a future podcast or episode. I think it would be great. So some of my favorite stories I've gained from just talking to past loved ones, because you are the same person when you pass as when you're alive. So I love meeting all of you guys that are alive, but your past loved ones, oh goodness, they're so fun. They're a hoot. Today, our first story is, it actually didn't have a title, but I titled it because I thought it was funny. It's titled Granny Don't Play by Charlene T. Charlene says, "Hey, I found your content on TikTok and now I'm obsessed. My story is about my grandmother. My grandmother died when I was around 2 or 3 years old. Today, I'm 23 going on 24. But until the age of 7, I could see my grandmother walking around the house at night, or she'd be in the kitchen trying to cook or cleaning up around the living room. Both me and my cousin could see her, but nobody else in my family could. By morning, I remember I could smell the good soul food meal, but there was no food to be seen anywhere. Me and my cousin knew it was my grandma, but since nobody in the house thought it was too, we decided to try and get proof. My grandmother had a china cabinet that she never let anyone get close to. However, years ago, my uncle broke the glass on the door. So we decided to take a fancy piece that our mother said my grandmother loved and put it out on the dining room table. When we woke up the next morning, we felt like we'd been hit on the heads with a soup pan or something on our foreheads, and the piece of china was back in the cabinet. After that, we told our family what had happened, and they finally believed us. I guess when our parents were younger, my grandma did the same thing with them and said, 'Y'all better not be messing with my cabinet again.' That woman don't play." Charlene, I loved your story. It made me really, 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 really happy. It's just such like a granny or grandma thing to do. One of my favorite things that I noticed in my mediumship readings with people was like, for example, okay, every encounter with a grandma that I've had up until was it last week? It was last week or 2 weeks ago. I had a lovely reading with a woman from like the Netherlands, and her grandmother, I believe her name was Kova. It was something Kova, but her grandmother came through and she was the first non-Asian or Filipino grandmother that was like, my grandchild does not eat enough vegetables and needs to eat actual food. Up until this point, Asian and like Filipino grannies always come forward and like, my child is not eating enough food. And when they do, it's not good food. They need to eat vegetables and rice. But Grandma Kova came up and she's like, listen, my granddaughter does not eat good food. Can you ask her, how hard is it for you to put vegetables in a pot and cook them? Just make some soup, for gosh darn it. But all the stuff you're putting into your body is not okay. Is it really that hard for you to make soup or eat a vegetable? So, Charlene, this is what your story made me think of, and I love it. Thank you for sending it in. All right, moving on to the second story. This story is by Deborah F, and Deborah titled it, Grandma Keeps Visiting. Deborah says, not particularly spooky, at least not for me. My grandmother and I were very close. She would sing to me at sundown from her balcony. I'd sit in the kitchen and try to help her while she prepared the most amazing meals, and we'd sit and talk for hours about anything and everything. She unfortunately got breast cancer when she was 80 and passed away at 84. The day she passes, I was sitting next to her, stroking her arm while she held on with barely no strength. My mom looked at me and told me, stop stroking her. She won't go if she feels you are here. Let her rest. And so I stopped stroking, and she immediately passed away. In the past 15 years since, I felt her presence on many occasions. A few that were particularly energetic. Most of the time she shows up when I'm having a hard time with life. It's a very soothing presence. On several occasions, I've woken up by her very distinct faint singing. I've been in the kitchen and my appliances will start to run on their own, mainly the extractor above my stove. At one point during my divorce, it happened so often that I unplugged the extractor, and it still turned on. So I took a hint and meditated on my choices. Tried to connect to her teachings while she was here with me, and it certainly helped. The most recent evening was during a stressful time. My dad got diagnosed with cancer. I was fast asleep and dreamt of my grandmother. She looked great. We were having a conversation about life while someone played acoustic guitar in the background. It was beautiful. At one point, my grandmother looked me straight in the eyes and said, "Well, that's my time. It's 4:00 in the morning." And I abruptly woke up, checked my nightstand clock, and it read 4:20 a.m. I am thankful for my grandmother in any way, shape, or form, and I'm so happy our connection has continued. P.S. I woke up shaking, angry, and sad with the feeling that my grandfather had passed away. A minute later, I got a call that he'd passed in his sleep. I've seen full-body apparitions of people within minutes of their passing, not knowing until later that they'd actually passed. And I sometimes catch shadows, or to quote Liv, wispy things that I'm not too sure why they're there or where they're going. But it's nice to feel like things continue on, albeit in a different way. Anyways, really enjoying your channel and approach, and take care. Deborah. Oh, Deborah. I just need you to know that I had to read your story at least 3 times so that I wouldn't cry when I read it on the podcast episode. Oh, it's things like this story right here from Deborah. This is like the coolest part about mediumship. I don't know. I've experienced little things like this recently over the past 2 years or so. I've never really felt very connected with my grandparents because they passed when I was very young. But it's been very recently that I've had my grandmother, and I think my my step-grandfather, we called him Bomp, come forward and just be like a very calming sort of presence for me. But it's like a familiar yet not familiar feeling, because I don't necessarily, they died when I was like 5 and under. So it's a familiar yet not, if that makes sense. More of like a nostalgic, calming feeling, if you will. Anyways, I want to talk about Deborah's part of her story where she says that she's had a dream with her grandmother. It makes me so happy. So let me see. It says the most recent event was during a stressful time. I was asleep and dreamt of my grandmother. She looked great. We were having a conversation about life while someone played acoustic guitar in the background, and it was beautiful. At one point, she looked me straight in my eyes and said, "Well, that's my time. It's 4:00 in the morning," and I abruptly woke up. So 2 things here. One is the way that I feel like, I'm not saying, Deborah, that you were in heaven, but this is just kind of like the what is it? The thing that pops into my head. So when I'm doing readings for people as a mental medium, clairvoyant, whatever you want to call it, souls do their best to show me what it is like in heaven. So as far as I can understand, heaven is like a mirror image of earth. It is like a collective consciousness where all souls that are not here physically reside. But it's also like a collective lucid dream, if you will, because souls have the ability to manifest their own surroundings. So you could even talk about like astral projecting if you want to. So like where your consciousness, your soul's consciousness is able to travel to different planes of existence. And for me, my understanding of heaven is that it is just a higher frequency of energetic existence, if you will. But if you want to talk about your consciousness and your soul being linked as one, which is something that I definitely need to talk about more in a future podcast, it just talks about the way the hypotheses and plausibility of whether you were astral projecting to meet your grandmother in heaven, or you guys were meeting in more of like a lucid dreaming. What is it called? I'm blanking now, because you have your subconscious dreaming state, but you have your superconscious. I call it like your superconscious state, where you can have lucid dreams. So that would be like a middle point in between what I would think energetically heaven and your dreaming world would be, where you and your grandmother could meet. So whatever it is that you want to believe or not, I just think it's really cool, because the way that you recall meeting your grandmother in a dream is so on point as how like souls will show me what their surroundings look like in heaven when I'm talking to them. It's very, very cool. And then the second part I wanted to talk about too was that she looked you straight in your eyes and said, "Well, that's my time. It's 4:00 in the morning." I think that's amazing. A common question that I get when I'm doing private readings with people, or even if I'm on a live stream, is, "I used to dream of so-and-so, up until a certain point, and now I don't dream of them anymore, like at all. And they think that maybe their past loved ones have like forsaken them, or they don't love them anymore or anything. But it's so cool that you remember this and you quote what your grandmother said of like, that's my time. It's 4:00 in the morning. And you woke up. Spirit gives us what we need, not necessarily what we want. So the fact that your grandmother was allowed to meet with you in your dream is 100% because you needed her. And spirit, God, creator, source, whatever powers that be that I believe govern mediumship and spiritual things, allowed your grandmother to talk to you because it was needed. So if you are out there and you're listening right now and you're like, I wonder why so-and-so, I used to dream of them so often, but now I don't. The reason is because back then you needed them. And even though it may be bittersweet, you don't need them in the same way anymore. You more so want them. You have emotionally graduated, I guess, if you will, in God, creator, source, spirit's eyes or whatever, to not necessarily need that person anymore in the same way. So yes, it's a good thing, but is it bittersweet? Also, it is. So I don't know. I really enjoy your story, Deborah. And I think it's a fabulous way for people to start to understand too, that even though souls pass, even though someone dies, their soul isn't gone, and your relationship with them does still exist. Just like you said, how did you say it? You said it in such a lovely, succinct way. It's nice to feel like things continue on, albeit in a different way. That is such a good way to put it. You can still have relationships with your past loved ones, depending on your culture. I know there's different things culturally for different people as well. But when it comes to like just a soul in general, or whatever your spiritual practice is of having a relationship with that person as a soul now, it still continues on. Your relationship is there. It's just in a different way. So, all right, let's move on to story number 3. Story number 3 is titled White Apparition or Grandma, sent in by Taylor Z. Taylor says, hey there, I just recently came upon your content on YouTube and came here from Sam and Colby's video. Love your reaction. Thank you, Taylor. I've been binge watching your content for the past few days. YouTube, TikTok, and podcast. Love it all, and I'm learning a lot. Anyways, I think I'm a rather intuitive person. Other people have told me that I'm an old soul. However, I have never been interested, definitely scared, to look into the metaphysical and paranormal stuff. A little backstory. This even happened at my grandparents' house. My grandparents had neighbors they were close to, an older couple. When I was younger, the couple used to babysit me and my younger sister. They never had any grandkids. They constantly told us that they loved us like their own. The woman of the couple passed away when I was 11 or 12, and her husband passed away 8 or 9 years later. I've always felt connected to them, and I've talked to them after their passing. I've always felt like her and her husband have been with me, more than any other family members that have passed. Now, the event. My very first visual paranormal experience happened at my grandparents' house. One night, I was trying to sleep in this bare bedroom. I was probably 12 to 15 years old. It was one of those half asleep, half awake states. When I opened my eyes, I saw a white apparition. It was this cloud type thing on the other side of the room near the door. It floated there for a minute and then started floating towards me. I stared in disbelief and then covered myself with a blanket. My heart was pounding, but I didn't feel any bad energy from this thing. I was just scared because it was unknown. After a little while, I uncovered my eyes to take a peek. The white cloud was over top of me. I covered myself up again, trying to pretend like it wasn't there. Eventually, I fell asleep under my blanket. To this day, I still have no idea whether that actually happened or I imagined it. If it did happen, who or what was it? Was it the woman? Were they in the room, and why did they come near me? Thank you for any info you can give, and I look forward to listening and watching more content. Taylor Z. Taylor. This is interesting. I find it, so I was reading back when I was reading the part where you said that the apparition happened when you were like one of those half asleep, half awake instances. I've talked so much about being in a like dream wake state on lots of other episodes. So if you're new here, I don't know, go listen to more episodes and I'll explain it better. But when you're in that sort of subconscious, conscious dream wake state, it kind of helps override any sense of your ego that you have. So therefore you can have more or I believe, you can experience more paranormal things because, again, your ego is inhibited because you don't really have an ego necessarily when you're dreaming, at least not in the same ways. Hence why people have crazy dreams or don't dream at all. But anyways, I was looking back and reading to see when the woman passed, because you said you were 12 to 15 years old, but the woman passed when you were about 12, so it couldn't have been the old man. It might have just been her. So I'm thinking about it from like a rational point of view. I guess I should tell you, I don't necessarily have an answer. I do feel like it could have been the woman. When I was reading it, mediumship-wise, like with my medium hat on, not necessarily just egotistically analyzing it, because I know that's not necessarily what you're looking for. When I was reading your story, I felt like it was a soul associated to the house that you were in. So, I mean, if your grandparents were friends with this older couple and they would come over, it could have been her, but I honestly do not have a solid answer for you. The one thing I did want to talk about that you shared is that you said that the cloud type thing on the other side of the room was near the door and it floated there for a minute and then it started floating closer to you and you stared in disbelief and covered yourself with the blanket. You said that your heart was pounding, but you didn't feel any bad energy from this thing, this cloud apparition. That I want to focus on for a second, because I just had a reading with another lovely human being that was asking about how to develop their psychic abilities. So when we think about our psychic abilities are just they're like our 5 physical senses that we use to perceive the physical world, but use to perceive the metaphysical. So the fact that you said that you didn't have any bad energy or feel any bad energy from this apparition, if you will, is so important. It's so important. I had a woman ask me the other day, she perceives physically, clairvoyantly, like dark shadows and figures, and sometimes more abstract apparitions that are like gray cloud forms, etc. And that is just, physically, clairvoyantly seeing things is like seeing something like how you're seeing the room around you right now. But it's so important for you to use your other clair abilities, if you will. In this instance, I would say that it was clairsentience, because you said you didn't feel any bad energy, that not feeling the energy or characteristic that could be bad associated to this thing. Like you had a physical, visceral response to seeing something physically with your 5 physical senses, or your, I don't know, at least your 1 physical sense of vision, which elicited that fear response because you didn't know what it was. However, metaphysically, you were able to pick up that this thing, whatever it was, did not have any bad or negative character traits, connotations, energy, feelings, whatever you want to talk about it. So the way I like to explain this is like, imagine you were blind, right? Because sometimes that's what it's like to perceive the metaphysical, because you don't always have it. It's not physical, it's metaphysical. So imagine you're someone who's blind. You can't see another person. However, when you're sitting in the room with another person, I'm sure as a blind person, you are able to pick up where things are in relation to you to some sort of extent. Obviously, that's going to be different for each person. But when you start to talk to people or understand them, even though you can't see them, you still start to understand who they are by like the energy or their character traits that you start to feel and understand. So when it comes to seeing shadow figures or apparitions like this, sometimes it's kind of like your psychic abilities aren't developed enough, or for whatever reason, you're only allowed to see them as a white shadowy apparition or a black figure. Because again, your spirit guides and spirit themselves, I feel like, do dictate to a certain extent your psychic abilities or your capabilities. So when it comes to that, it's important to understand that just because something looks scary or you don't see the full picture of it doesn't mean that you don't have other capabilities to get more information associated with it. So just like how a blind person is able to understand people's personality, character traits, etc. after meeting them, you did the same thing with this apparition. I hope I'm making sense to everybody that's listening, but I want to bring that to people's attentions from your story, because if you're trying to develop your psychic abilities, what you did here just instinctually, innately, was very freaking cool. So saying that you saw that this was really, it seemed alarming to you, but that you felt nothing bad from it, is so much more telling about what it is that you're seeing than what you're physically seeing. So being able to get that information clairsentiently or through your feelings, emotions, etc., is much more important than just what it is that you're seeing for face value. I also like to say it's kind of like, if you see I had a friend in high school, right? And he was the one friend in high school that had like the big gauges in his ears. He had the whole like emo punk thing going on. I mean, like spiked mohawk blue, gelled every single day, big gauges, face piercings. I don't know. I think he had a couple tattoos in high school. And like the big baggy Junko jeans, but with the big like rings down the side and all this other stuff. He looked terrifying. But Greg was actually the nicest guy you'd ever meet. Volunteered for the animal shelters on the weekends when he wasn't working. So I like to also sort of put it or equate seeing things that seem scary to actually how they feel, just like that. So I think it's really cool, Taylor, the experience that you had. I do feel like the apparition that you saw was related to the house or the people that have been associated to the house. But other than that, I don't have a definite answer for you. But that's very cool that you got to have like additional grandparents, if you will. So thank you so much, Taylor, for sending in your story. And we're going to go to our fourth and final story by Sara. So the title of Sara's story is Aunt Phillis. Sara says, and I like this one, "Buckle up, Buttercup. This is a wild one. Not scary, but if you think realizing your head movies are actually accurate and real, then I guess it's pretty scary. Lol. Either way, it's a doozy of a story. So my grandma was basically raised by her aunts, all 6 of them. These ladies never married and only really took care of their mom and other sisters their whole lives. Growing up, I heard cute little stories about all of them. I only remember my great-great-aunt Anne. She was a wonderful old lady with red hair who loved my mother so very much. So I literally never met the others. They passed away before I was born. Now, my grandmother always talked about how when she dies, she wants to go the way my Aunt Phillis went. She said, my Aunt Phillis kissed everyone goodnight and went up to bed and quietly went in her sleep. She just went to bed and never woke up, is what my grandma says. As a kid, when she talked about it, I could imagine or see an older lady walking up the stairs and saying goodnight. This kind of thing happened a lot to me. Someone would start telling me their experience or about someone or something in my mind, kind of like Liv says, would make the movies for the information or story that I was being told. Just thought it was my imagination. Now, fast forward 20-ish years. It's present day. I'm currently 23 years old and I'm going through a spiritual awakening, if you will. Healing my trauma, connecting with my guides, and starting to speak my truth for the first time. I randomly find y'all and start realizing like, what the actual crap? I can see ghosties? Wait, I'm a medium? My granny from my father's side reaches out first. She supports me, she protects me. Then I start hearing her having these very clear interrupting thoughts, like, there's a lady in purple, and in my mind's eye, I see a lady in a purple dress. And then the next day, I hear there's a man in silver and blue. I live right by a cemetery, and I often take my dog there and hang out. So I think that's where those come from. Okay, now I am being mindful of what thoughts are flipping in my brain, are mine and are not mine. Moving on. I'm trying to connect with my granny, and all of a sudden, another older woman steps forward. She looks exactly like my grandma, but taller and a little bit heavier. And I ask her, "Hi, who are you?" And her aura is dark blue, turquoise, and green. She's wearing a blue moo-moo with white flowers on it. Then I hear Aunt Toonie, which I only know the name as one of my great-great-aunts. So I'm like, sweet, nice of you to say hello, and I start connecting with Aunt Toonie. I ask my mom about her because my grandma and I haven't been on the best of terms. She didn't come to my wedding because she doesn't like me. No idea why. My mom is like, I don't remember. Ask grandma. I put it off for a few days, but I cannot kick the urge to freaking call her. Aunt Toonie is annoyed that I am not listening to her now, LMAO. She is standing with her hands on her hips, tapping her foot anytime she steps forward now. I eventually call my grandma and start asking her about Aunt Toonie. I describe what she looks like, and it confuses my grandma. She's like, that sounds like my mom, bro. And I'm like, wasn't your mom skinny? And she says, yeah. So we know it isn't Aunt Toonie, and we know it isn't Nana. I describe her dress, and my grandma says Aunt Phillis was the one who wore the nightgowns. After they visited Hawaii, that's all she wore. Ding, 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 ding. We have a winner. Aunt Phillis steps forward and is like, you can learn from your grandma, and she can learn from you. And then she just wanted me to know how much she loved my grandma. Aunt Phillis was the aunt my grandmother was the closest to, and she has basically not left me alone about taking care of my grandma. She says things like, "You got to take care of this one." That's what I hear most often. She even started echoing my grandma while we were on the phone. They are both very religious, and my grandma has stories about hearing Jesus Christ and staying up all night with her dead mom. So it runs in the family. And my grandma tells me, "He is telling me to tell you, when the bad thoughts come, when the dark things appear, you yell, 'In the name of Jesus Christ, I rebuke you.'" And literally, Aunt Phillis is like, "Yes, rebuke them now." So if you remember at the beginning of this freaking book that I've written when I was younger, I could see an old lady walking up some stairs saying goodnight whenever my grandma talked about how Aunt Phillis passed. Guess what the freaking old lady looked like, and guess what she was wearing? If you said she was a taller version of my grandma in a blue muumuu with white flowers, you are correct. Anyway, what a full circle moment. Am I right? So now I have Aunt Phillis on my ass about taking care of my grandmother, and I'm not really upset at all. My motto and my creed is, I love to love and I hate to hate. So I am just this soft, squishy little gal who wants all things to be rainbows and butterflies. So I am stoked to get connected with my grandmother like this. Also, I am stoked to get to practice my psychic abilities. P.S. I absolutely love your content. Thanks so much. Sara S. Thank you for sending in this story. This is just like to build on like story number 2 with Deborah F about how, you know, your relationship with past loved ones change. And the fact that your great Aunt Phillis was also super religious makes me happy, because there has only been like, I would say more times than less, souls who are religious and don't necessarily agree or believe in mediumship when they pass, they usually step forward in one way, shape, or form to communicate with me and whoever is asking for them to come forward, because it's very important to their loved one, the person that made a reading with me. But there is a small percentage that won't, and you know, sometimes there's ways to get around that, like another soul will step forward and talk on behalf of them, or one of your spirit guides will answer your questions in lieu of them. But I just think it's really cool that your Aunt Phillis was like super religious and like yelling about Jesus and things like that, and your grandma's like, yeah. So I don't know, maybe it was like you needed your Aunt Phillis to step forward in that point in your life in order to rebuild the relationship that you had with your grandma. Because maybe if you went to your grandma before talking about like the mediumship stuff and paranormal things that maybe you had been going through, she would have been like, whoa, that's not cool. You know, in the name of Jesus Christ, get out of here type of thing. But because you stepped forward with your Aunt Phillis, that whole sort of like dynamic shifted and changed. So I think that's kind of cool. But thank you so much for sharing your story, and I loved it. It was beautifully written, and I liked all of the, like, you did very good with the grammar and the yelling. Everything was in caps. It was a pleasure to read. So I hope everyone enjoyed listening to it as well. That is all I have for you today for episode 211, Listener Story, Volume 32. We'll see what I name or don't name it once I edit the podcast, but thank you all so much for being here. If you're interested in Patreon, I talked about that. You can just go back to the timestamp, You can go back to the timestamp where I talk about it if you're more interested in listening to the updated Patreon things. If not, I appreciate your support. I've been having so many people book readings with me recently where they're like, I listened to the podcast or I watched the YouTube videos. And I always tell you, thank you so much for making a reading with me, because even though I have the podcast and the YouTube channel, this is what I love to do, is readings for people. So I appreciate you guys listening to the podcast and watching the videos, making readings with me. And I look forward to all of the lovely growth that we can have as a business and a community for 2026. So until next time, peace.